and welcome back. Before I begin, I'd just like to welcome my two latest subscribers, Apede81 and Camera Girl for AG Dolls. Thank you both so much for subscribing, I really appreciate it. And now on with the haul. I'm starting with my acquisitions from the Johns Hopkins University Library, and this time I was able to snag 3 videos from the McNaughton Popular Viewing collection. First is Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, which is based on one of my favorite books of all time, although I actually liked Through the Looking Glass even better. And this, I'm about halfway through this one, and it appears to be sort of a combination of the 2 books, and definitely a very Tim Burton-ish re-envisioning. It's not bad, it's pretty enjoyable. Next is Youth in Revolt. This isn't necessarily the sort of thing I would gravitate towards, but it's directed by Miguel Arteta, who directed The Good Girl, Chuck and Buck, and Star Maps. And it's written by Gustin Nash, who wrote Charlie Bartlett, which is probably my favorite teen movie ever made. So it's got a great pedigree, and I hope it lives up to it. Next is Accidents Happen. I'm not really sure what this is. I hadn't even heard of it before, but Gina Davis is in it, and I really like her, so we'll see. And now this is from the Hopkins regular collection. First is Love and Anger. This is an anthology film which I checked out because it had segments by Godard and Pasolini. And I just have to say this was awful. I would not recommend this at all. Although, if you're a big fan of either of those directors, or of Bertolucci, Bellocchio, or Vazzini, you're probably not going to listen to me and you'll check it out anyway, but I was not a fan. And then this Danish dark comedy called Adam's Apples. This one, it took a while to grow on me. I really liked the premise, which is an ex-convict who decides that he is going to teach a priest who does not believe in evil that evil does in fact exist. And it started off really slowly for me, but by the end, I'd say maybe about the last third of the movie, it really picks up and there's a great payoff. So I wouldn't say run out and see it, but there's definitely something to it. And now these I have not seen from Hopkins. This is Quadrophenia, which is a rock opera by The Who, or a rock opera with music by The Who. Their most famous rock opera is probably Tommy, which I have to say I was not crazy about, even though I love Ken Russell, who directed Tommy, and it had an all-star cast. But this one seems like it's much less over the top and more concerned with the social conditions of the times. It looks like it's about the rivalry between the mods and the rockers. And it features one of my all-time favorite songs by The Who, which is Love, Reign O'er Me. Next is Barbara Loden's Wanda, which is a gritty drama. I don't know that much about it, but I know it's pretty well acclaimed. And then Overlord, which is a sort of hybrid documentary drama about World War II. And last, and sorry this one doesn't have a proper cover, is Jean-Luc Godard's Le Petit Soldat. I really have had this on-off viewing relationship with Godard for probably years at this point. I go through phases where I just watch a bunch of his films, I think they're wonderful and he's just the greatest, and then I see 1 or 2 in a row that are just tedious and awful, and I say, forget this, and I just give up on him. But I always come back. And this is one of his earlier films. I believe it might even be his second film. Don't quote me on that though. And it is the first film he made with Anna Karina, who was his muse for a long time and for a while was his wife. I've really enjoyed most of the Godard films I've seen up through 1975. And then after that, I don't know. They don't do anything for me, although people keep telling me this one or that one is worth seeing, so I sort of sample them And honestly, I'm probably going to wind up seeing them all at some point. For the record, my favorite Godards are La Chinoise, Pierrot le Fou, Sympathy for the Devil, and Numéro 2. But I've found that you really can't trust anybody about Godard. You find somebody who you think is just a complete Godard kindred spirit, and then she'll say, oh, Sympathy for the Devil was awful, or he'll say, Las Pour Moi was wonderful, and suddenly your whole Godard universe will be thrown out of whack because you really trusted this person. So don't listen to anybody about Godard. Give him a try, make up your own mind. You'll probably be like me and wind up having to see them all. And then from University of Baltimore, I got Cannery Row, based on the novel by John Steinbeck and starring Nick Nolte and Deborah Winger. I thought this was pretty corny. I watched the whole thing. It's not a horrible movie. It just is corny. But honestly, I find Steinbeck a little corny, so this may not be the fault of the screenwriter or the actors. And from Stevenson University, I got Mirage, starring Gregory Peck. I have not seen this yet. It appears to be a sort of film noir in which he, I believe, has amnesia, and it's directed by Edward Dmytryk. And the remaining are from the Sights and Sounds department of the Enoch Pratt Free Library. First up is Masaki Kobayashi's Kwaidan. Kobayashi directed Harakiri as well, which I was talking about last week. And if you like Harakiri, this is even better. It's very different, but this was just so amazing. It's a quartet of ghost stories based on the book by Lafcadio Hearn, which I've not read yet, but this made me really want to read the book. And it's just wonderful. This is in color, as opposed to Harakiri, which was in black and white. And just the color palette is beautiful. It's so eerie. It's like even when something scary isn't happening, you're just on pins and needles because you know something is going to happen. Highly, highly recommended. Next is Aguirre, the Wrath of God, starring Klaus Kinski and directed by Werner Herzog. I thought this was wonderful too. I'm not sure what my problem is with Herzog because of all the films of his I've seen, I've really liked almost all of them, but for some reason I don't gravitate towards him, and I really need to start gravitating more towards him because a lot of his films are wonderful, and this is no exception. Highly recommended. Next is Claude Lelouch's A Man and a Woman. I have not seen this yet. It was a big hit when it came out, which I believe was in the late 60s, a big crossover foreign hit in the US. Supposedly rather sappy, but we all need a little sap now and then. And stars Anouk Aimée, whom I love. She was in La Dolce Vita and also in Jacques Demy's Lola films, which were Lola and Model Shop. And last but not least, continuing in the Forbidden Masterpiece Theater vein, I got all 3 volumes of Body and Soul. This aired, I believe, in 1994. I remember seeing the ads for it back when we had a real TV guide in my hometown paper. They would have little ads for the Masterpiece Theater things, and I remember seeing the ads for this one. It stars Kristen Scott Thomas as a nun who is forced to leave the convent to take care of, I think some relative of hers dies and she has to dispose of the family mill or something like that. And of course she winds up facing the temptations of the flesh, etc. And I believe this aired about the same year as The Rector's Wife, which suggests that somebody had a bee in his or her bonnet about religion. But we'll see. I hope this lives up to my expectations. And if you've made it this far, thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me for my next video.